Hi, so I'm going to show you how to make these face masks that I was posting in a few different ways. I'm going to show you how to do it with elastic straps, which are going to be like this. I'm going to show you how to do it with the tunnel, which will just sew like this, and then you can put any kind of string through it and it'll gather for you. And then I'm going to show you with ties, which is what a lot of the hospitals are asking for, which is very similar to the way you're doing this. Once you have your fabric cut out, which is what I put in the material list, then you can definitely get started. I'm going to try and make this video where you can pause after each step, complete the step, and then go back and watch the rest of the video. That's what helped me learn the most. So the first thing you're going to need to do is get that top fabric. The fabric is going to be, the outside is going to be up. So this is the side that you're going to have exposed to the environments, and you want to start with it facing you. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to get the lining. So if you're going to do it without a pocket, you're just going to put them down like this, where the outside of the lining is facing the outside of the pretty side of the fabric. So this is the way that you're going to set up. For people that are making pockets, very similar. The only difference is you're going to use your two pieces of fabric and pile them on top of each other. So you're going to put the pretty side of the fabric touching the other pretty side, and you're going to have it folded up about 1 inch to 1/2 inch, depending on what size you cut that top fabric by following that guide I gave. Then you're going to put the second piece on top. So you want the longer piece on the bottom, and you want the shorter piece on top. What we're going to do is we're going to stitch around the outside. So whether it has a pocket or not, it's going to be basically the same approach. The only difference is going to be the way you put the straps. So I'm going to show you how to create the lining in a way where it won't fray in a second, which is just by stitching it a straight stitch across the bottom, as you see I did here. And then we're going to do that on the top. So I'll show you how to sew this top fabric. Again, if you're not using pockets, you can skip this step and you can just skip ahead. So I'm going to take it to the machine really quickly, and I'm just going to show you the way that we stitch it down. Okay, so again, this is the bottom piece, and this is, I folded it and I got an iron and I pressed it down. You don't have to do that. That's an extra step. You could get your nail, since it's cotton, it's going to stay like that. So what we're going to do is have it look like this in the end. If you can see, that's my chalk mark. This is what the side that you're going to see, which is going to touch your face. This is what the finished piece should look like. So we're going to do that to the top. So the larger piece, you should fold it down about 1 inch, 1/2 inch to 1 inch. You want to do it bigger so it doesn't flap open and bother you while you're talking. So you're going to pinch it down with your nail, like I said, and you're going to have it on a tension of between 2 and 3. And the reason you do that is because you need a different tension depending on the fabric you're working with. It will pull on the thread. It will be difficult. If it sounds foreign, it's okay. Either it's going to be digital or it's going to be a little roll like this, and you want to get it between 2 and 3. The stitch we're going to do is also straight stitch. We don't need, oops, we need it at 0. So basically the stitch that usually your machine starts at when you turn it on, that's the stitch we want to do. You do not need a zigzag. It takes longer. It takes more thread. You don't need it to be stretchable. You just need a quick stitch, which is usually 00, and it's going to be the first one on the machine. So single needle. Also, the needle you're using is going to be a jersey fabric needle, either jersey or cotton. The reason you don't want it to be too thick is because sometimes it gets stuck in the fabric when it's coming out. That'll make a mess. If it's too thin, as we start to layer on the mask, it's going to possibly bend or break. Nobody has time for that, and to buy extra needles right now, it's not really realistic. So we want to try and get a jersey. Sometimes all-purpose needles work. If you have that, just work with what you have. Another thing is you can use polyester thread if you're doing this for home or friends. If you're doing it for a senior home or neighbors, that's fine. Or what I'm doing is I'm making for some Ralph's workers. You can do that fine. But when you're giving it to the hospital, it has to be 100% cotton thread. Another thing is a really good guide to go by is I have the edge of this fabric touching the edge of this metal. The reason I do that is because it's going to keep me on a straight line. When you're a beginner, which I'm beginning to work with cotton right now, you really need to have it under control and giving yourself a line right there rather than trying to eye it like this. It just really is going to give you a smoother line. So we're just going to straight stitch all the way across. And again, this is just the lining. You do not need it to be perfect, no matter who you're giving it to. People just need it right now, and they would like to have some type of protection. So don't spend too much time making it perfect. Okay, and so now I'm going to pull back, and I'm going to show you how to assemble it. So it's super quick. If you have a bunch of these cut out, the way I've been doing it is just doing the same stitch on all the fabric at once. That way you have kind of like an assembly line, and that always makes it faster. So when you're ironing it, you press it, press the next one, sew it, you do it continuously, because once you're in that groove, that's really going to be the best part. So the big piece goes down first. Oops, you're going to want the jagged side facing you, right? So the good pieces of fabric are touching each other. So you want this jagged side facing you, and you're going to lay this down. Now I'm going to stitch it with the elastic, but the technique is going to be the same as straps. Each mask is going to need 4 straps, right? So you lay it down about 1/4 inch from the edge. Pretend these are fabric straps, right? So about 18 to 20 inches each. Okay, sorry, the guard dog is making sure that nobody messes with us right now. So you're going to lay these down if these are straps, right? We're going to show you with elastic though. So you're going to have them on opposite ends. A lot of the tutorials you'll see will have you pin down both sides of the elastic at once. I highly recommend against that, because it will create gathering the fabric as you're sewing, which makes it a lot harder to control when you're new to this. So I work only with spandex and lycra. So again, I'm giving you all the beginner tips that I'm learning, because technically this is new for me too. So if you have a hair clip, the kind of like basically wig clips is what they look like. This works really well. This technique that I'm doing right here with sewing clips, you could do that with hair clips. You could do it with bobby pins. If you have sewing needles, sewing pins, you could just pin it on there like, you know, with this. So I'll show you with this version, because not everybody has these, but they're great. You could get them on Amazon or Joann's, but I know it's not so convenient to do that right now. So you're going to put one end 1/4 inch down, and you're just going to pin it in place like this. So you go in once and you go out a second time. Careful not to poke yourself. And you just want to hold that in place. We're going to take it out as we go, but this is just to kind of guide and keep it along there. Also, something that's a really good idea is to pin down the 2 pockets together, because they tend to shift when you're sewing. We're going to get to sewing right now. All right, so we're going to start sewing on the side right here. Mind you, if it's straps or elastic, it does not matter. This specific starting point is going to be the same for both, right? So we're going to start with about 1/4 inch away. Now, when I said earlier the guide will help you follow along, it's perfect for this as well. We're going to follow this guide here. That way it gives us a perfect 1/4 inch away from the corner of the fabric. So since the strap is right here, or the elastic is right here, we're going to start going over that, but we're going to go and backstitch, because we want to make sure that it stays on really well, since you're going to be tugging on it a lot, especially if you're giving it to the medical community. Now we're going to twist it around. You lift it up. Don't worry about it moving, because the needle's down, right? So you're going to twist it around, and you make sure you're not sewing the elastic over itself. Mind you, if you have trouble with all this fabric holding it on your own, like it seems I'm having right now, you're fine to pin it as much as you want. So you could pin it all the way across here, like I used to do, and that just kind of keeps it stable. So I'm going to go now, and I'm just going to line the entire edge right here with the same distance. Okay. When you get to the edge right here, this is where we're going to, I should have put this on this edge, I'm sorry. So we're going to sew this on the same spot. So you flip it around, and you are going to put your elastic inside. So it's going to be 1/4 inch right here, and you're going to start with just one edge, making sure that you're not tangling them up. And you're going to bring it up. Seems like a little bit more of a struggle than it is, I promise. It's because I put it on the wrong side. Okay, so now you're going to have it, see where it is right there. You can kind of see it sticking out, which is good. And we're going to sew it down. And again, make sure you're back stitching it, because it gets pulled on and you don't want it to come out. Okay, so you go over it. You can feel when it goes over it. And then you're going to back stitch right there. Okay, now make sure that it's out of the way. The good thing about having the pockets is you could sew all the way around. If you are not going to use pockets and you're going to use just the single lining, what you're going to do is you're going to stop. You're going to give yourself about 2 inches without stitching, and then you're going to continue, because you need to pull this fabric inside out. Remember, this whole thing is going to get flipped inside out. So pocket allows you to do that by default, but if you're sewing without a pocket, you're going to have to give yourself a pause, cut it, and then start again. So you're going to sew down, take your clips as you go, and make sure these are laid flat. Don't worry if you're going slower. And again, you can do all of this by hand. It's going to take you a while, but you know what? It's going to work and it's going to be beautiful. And you're going to have that real hand-stitched mask. And it's going to be very, very much made with love if you do that. So you're going to go into your fabric right here. You're going to pull out that elastic, keeping it flat. So it's still flat. You're not having it twist because that'll hurt your ears. You make sure that's flat all the way across. And you're going to pull it over here. So again, it's going to be 1/4 inch from the end on every corner. Right there. Hold it down. So I'm pinning it down. You might have to do that a few times. It's totally fine. I still do that. It'll come out the same. Back stitch to make sure it's on there good. And then you're going to continue on. And you're going to do the same thing on this end. You're going to flip it. And keeping it on this edge, remember, you're keeping it in one straight row. Meanwhile, always check and make sure the elastic is out of the way because you don't want to open this up and then you can't use the elastic. That's the worst. Right now we're going to stitch all the way straight down pretty quickly. My sewing machine, by the way, is from Walmart. It's the cheapest, worst sewing machine ever, but I just needed something and it'll work. So it's about $100. It's called a Runway Brother. It's pretty much a go-to for me. I'm looking for this elastic on this side. Okay, so we're going to pull out this elastic on this side again. And remember, it's about 1/4 inch. You lift, you place it at about 1/4 inch. And try to do it straight down, not at an angle, because sometimes you catch and it's not as controlled. You want to make sure that it's pinned down as much as possible so you could get in as many stitches to keep it stable. So I'm going to pin that down with my finger. Okay. We're going to set it down and we're going to turn the corner again like that and make sure it's on the edge. Again, it does not have to be perfect. We're going to go over the elastic. We're going to back up on the elastic. And then we are going to, since this one's already sewn, you could grab it and pull it out. The reason that I don't have you guys pin the elastic the whole time is because you'll get this gathering the whole square and it just makes it a little bit more complicated, like you saw me struggle a little. So you want to flatten out this fabric, hold it down. And then we're gonna make sure we're keeping this elastic to the left of this. This whole table's shaking. Always backstitch on these because they get pulled on a lot. Okay. So now you want to go, you don't have to worry about cutting all these, but I mean, it's a nice thing to do because they will come out on their own. You want to cut the corner right here because it's going to make it easier to flip. So cut the corners right here. And as you see, my fabric shifted a little, so it's a little crooked, but that does not matter. Nobody's going to see that. Cut all the corners. You don't have to do this step, but it does help you get cleaner corners. Okay. So now, had you sewn without a pocket, you're going to have a little piece right here that's open that you're going to pull it through. But since you have a pocket on this example, you're going to see how it comes out. And this is the time when having a hot iron is really helpful because pressing it down before finishing is the best. So here's two options for you. Either you can call it a day and use this if it's small enough, or you could do the pleating, which to be honest is the most tedious part. You get scissors or something sharp, push those edges out, get them nice and sharp. That's why we need to cut those corners because it allows us to do this part right here. Get it nice and square. Okay, so now you have your pocket that is going to completely overlap. You don't want it like this because then you have only one piece of fabric, number one. Number two, when you're talking, it's really obnoxious. So you're gonna be able to put, people are using HEPA vacuum bags and cutting them up. I think that's the most realistic way to approach it. It will not replace an N95. None of this is, but it is better than not having some type of protection, and that's what we're doing here. Main thing is to wear these over real masks. But if you don't have anything, that's the next best thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to press it, which then in turn looks like this. Nice sharp corners, just by pressing down with the iron on the front and the back, right? So you're gonna have this nice flat fabric with pockets. Okay, so the next step is the last step before we do our last stitching. So you're gonna make pleats. So I'm gonna just eye this, but you wanna make it to where it's about an inch. You wanna pleat it 3 times, which means just 2 folds, like this. Just folding it down. So the back should look the same. It's gonna look the same with 3 pleats. So I'll do that again, because this is actually the most tedious thing. That's actually the most difficult for me. You have the iron ready, you have it on linen, you have it hot. You're gonna take your finger behind it, finger in front, and you're gonna fold it down about an inch. There's a bunch of techniques for this online. Honestly, they just take more time and they're a bit more frustrating because you can't ever get it exactly how they do it. I just do it by seeing an inch, using my finger in front, my finger in the back, and you're flipping it down like that. So now I'm gonna get the iron and I'm gonna press down and I'm gonna iron this really quickly. But Cupcake's laying on the towel. Excuse me, Cupcake. Almost done either. Okay, so you have your pleats, and again, remember, like I said, because it's cotton and you need temporary marcations, whether you have my type of nails that are about to fall off or not, it'll press down with just any type of nail. So you're gonna press down on it, give it a good press. Having it on high is great. Just make sure that you are being careful about it. Now remember, if you have that, ooh, if you have, don't do that at home. If you have that little thing on the don't worry about that yet. We're gonna work with that. You need that still to be open because we're gonna work with the wires for the nose. So if you have tweezers, it's really great. I'm gonna use these. Not everybody has these, but if you have tweezers, what you do is you get the end. Ooh. This is the nose wire to help it fit the best, and you're gonna just flip it in because you do not want the sharp edges to come out and poke somebody in the eye. You want it to last in the washing machine. So you're gonna close off the edges and you're gonna make sure it looks like that, okay? So these are 4 inches before we do that. Now, if you have the side slit, you're gonna slip it through the side. Since we have a pocket, we are gonna slip it through the pocket. The top, remember, is the longest piece. So you're gonna put this in. You're gonna put it in the center, right there for now. Okay, you're gonna have it up at the top. A good way to keep it in place is to pin it, or if you have bobby pins, or if you have clips, just clip it to keep it there. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna sew the pleats in place. Oh shoot, I'm glad I did that. Okay, so you wanna pleat it from the top down. You want the top to be down because you don't want anything to collect on the top of their face. So this is what you need to do. I'm glad I did that to make sure to tell you guys that part. It's really important. You want the pleats to be facing downwards. When I first started doing these pleats, it took me a really long time, so I promise you it's gonna be a bit complicated at first, but you'll get used to it. So now we have this pin. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a 1/4 inch, so you're still gonna use the same leg on the sewing machine, the same foot, and you're gonna go all the way across, and you're gonna sew these pleats in place. And since you have that little opening, for those of you who didn't do a pocket, you're just gonna tuck in the fabric and you're gonna sew it down, and then it's gonna stay still. It's gonna be done. So you're gonna sew all the way across the whole thing. And then I'll just do that right now for you guys to see. While this is in here, just make sure you keep it pushed up And if you use the same 1/4 of an inch measurements, you're going to be below it and you're not going to touch it with the needle. The needle will possibly break if you hit it. So you want to make sure while you're sewing, you're pushing up, and I'll show you how to do that. Remember, if you had straps, 4 straps, they'll just be hanging out right now. They would have flipped out and had 2 straps on either side and you would be just fine. There's going to be one more way I'm going to show you to do it with shoelaces with the tunnel, and I'll show you with the other one. So you're going to start that 1/4 inch right here. And remember, you're holding this pin up here. If you need it to be clipped, I'll show you how to do that. Just keep it clipped. And you're going to use this finger to control it to make sure it's pressed up. That's also where having it well ironed comes into play, because there's not a lot of fuss up there. It's ironed. Okay. It's moving on me. Okay. Ready? We're going to start going. So with my finger, I'm pressing this wire up and out of the way. I will admit it makes it a little bit more difficult to have a straight line at the top. But again, at this point, it does not have to be fancy. Hopefully you're not selling these. You're making them for your family or to donate. If you are selling them, please, I have to ask that you do not try to make this into a business. We all need it. $5 or just whatever you need to cover your expenses. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing where we flip it around and keep it in the same line, but now we're gonna sew down and make sure that our pleats are in place. If you wanna have them clipped before you go, that's totally fine. That is what most people do, is they have them clipped or pinned with your pin. But once you iron them, you don't really need that. Okay, so we're gonna, also, you wanna back stitch right over the pleat because you want them to stay pleated. So right when you go over the hump, the step of the pleat, you're gonna go back once, then you're gonna go down to the edge, and then you're gonna flip it around and just do the same thing all the way across. Okay. The complicated part about coming this way is this is a lump, so I'll show you how to bypass that. So you're gonna come as much as you can and see how it gets stopped here. You're just gonna have to lift it and press down with your finger. Lift it, press down. You can pull from the back. Helps you move a little faster, but be very gentle with it because sometimes it moves really quickly and then you get this super crooked line. Happened to me many times. There we go. All right, we're getting to the last pleat, so we're gonna back stitch over once. There we go. And we're almost done. There's just one more step, and then you're gonna be finished, okay? Okay, so we'll clean up these threads later on for time's sake. I'm gonna show you. So this is where your little nose thing is. So what you want to do is you want to, all of the lengths that I gave you for the different like adult and children sizes are the same. So for children, you want to do it 2 inches from the end, and from adults, you want to do it 2.5 inches from the end, what I'm going to show you now. So go to 2.5 inches, and you want to make sure that this little metal is out of the way. And you're gonna stitch a line up and down. What you're doing is you're making a channel so this doesn't move out of place. You wanna make a channel up and down, which is gonna technically make a little triangle of this first line, a rectangle of this first line like that. So we're gonna go up and down and we're gonna back stitch it. These are not gonna be perfect because it's gonna move and it's so short, and you cannot be hard on yourself if it's not perfect. I'm talking to myself right now when I say that, just so you know. So you do forwards, then you do backwards, and then you do forwards. That's 3. That's it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exact when you're, you know, how many steps you go back and forth. You just need it to be a channel right there. That way it can't come out. So now you're going to push this back towards it so it's hitting the wall and you can feel it stopping. And then you're gonna, again, measure 2.5 inches from the corner. Right there, exactly. So I'm gonna go in 2 inches for kids, 2.5 inches for any of the adult patterns. And I'm just gonna do that same technique where I'm gonna go forwards and backwards. One forward, backwards once, forwards again. Okay. If you like to give it another press before you give it away, make it look nice and clean, then you're totally welcome to do that. Put a little note in it, you know, telling whoever thank you for all the work that they're doing. And you are done. You have these, or you'll have the 2 long straps hanging. And that is, I don't want to get my lip gloss on it. You have the nose, bendable, done. Okay, so this is showing you how to do it without a pocket, and this is going to show you how to flip it out, but it's also going to show you how to do it if you want to just use a shoelace, if you want to use any string that you have at home, anything you need, any kind of cord, okay? I'm going to speed up this part. Just flip it out. And I'm not going to take the time to iron this because I need to make this move faster. Flip it inside out. Okay, so what we're going to do is right here, you see you fold it in. We're going to do a little straight stitch. Always back stitch. I didn't do it with the nose because I'm trying to make this faster, but the nose step would be identical of what you saw earlier. You just stick it in there, then you make a channel. So typically I would flatten this out. Don't worry about that. So if you have shoelaces and you just want to make a really quick mask just by doubling fabric, all you have to do is give yourself this 1/2 inch right there. So you want it to hang over the edge. Mind you, I'm using my larger foot, so if you have options from feet, this is the best one to use. So you're going to back stitch, keep it nice and secure, and then you're just going to stitch quickly all the way across. That's it. Stitch. That's it. You're done. You have a tunnel. You do this on the other side. You're going to do this on the other side like that. And then what you can do is you can put any kind of shoelace or string through here, especially if you put it on a safety pin, put the tip on a safety pin, and then you could just kind of put it through, and then it's going to scrunch up on both sides. You're going to have a mask ready to go. You could do it with or without that pleating. If you want the pleating, you can't sew it down. You're just going to have to iron it and keep it pressed. But the strings will keep that in line. That's all you have to do. You have a little tunnel. You're done. Good to go. Good luck, guys. Send me pictures. Love you. So what I'm doing is I got a lanyard, and I cut the tip off. You put a bobby pin on the edge, and then you have something to string it through with. So as you see, it came all the way through. And now we have a mask. Very simple. You just sew 2 fabrics to each other. You fold the tip in half. And now you can tie this. You just need another one for the other side. And you tie it and you're done.